So over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see such a nice turnout. A slight relief to see half the room cleared there. But we're going to try in the 15 minutes to give you a taste of the Ballyhoura Graveyard project and focusing on engagement with the communities of the Ballyhoura region. The content in our 15 minutes will cover the initiative design where the Ballyhoura Historic Graveyards project fitted. The initiative in question is the genealogy tourism product that we created in the Ballyhoura region in the last 3 years. We're going to look at the process involved, funding and delivery of that, the pilot scheme on the ground, which Colum behind me is going to cover, and also the key successes and the outcomes of that. With any initiative, you have to identify the idea, and that either comes from a need at local level or an opportunity that we see at national level. We would then discuss this idea with our networks. We animate our target groups within community, in this case a lot of our heritage and historic groups. It would often lead to an information session. From that, an expression of interest would go to our community groups and a commitment to the project, and that's the process before we fund a project and before we commence to roll it out. So in this case, we were looking at genealogy tourism, and this was in the years 2011, 2012, with the trickle of the gathering coming down the line for 2013. And there was 3 things happening. Ireland reaching out, the focus of that being to enable people of Irish heritage to connect with the community that their people came from, very much grassroots, community-led. The Octra Historic Graveyard Survey project, again, this is a community-based heritage project to digitally record and publish historic graveyard surveys and stories. And of course, the gathering, again, to promote community-based events in the year 2013. So we saw that one underpinned the other, and that is how we rolled out the historic graves in the Ballyhoura region. We heard, particularly in 2013, about the 70 million diaspora worldwide. And in a rural village or town in County Limerick, North Cork, that 70 million is very hard to attain. So we looked at a sample of small to medium-sized towns and villages in our region, and we looked at the decline, the population decline. In this case, we're looking at 12 small to medium-sized towns, villages, and between 1841 and 2002, there was a population decline of over 32,000. So quite quickly we saw there was a potential there. We had a potential diaspora that communities on the ground could tap into. And the population figures, the most up to date we had was 2002 at this time, but you can imagine that that figure is going to be much more in today's climate. So in starting this genealogy project, we would have kicked off with the training of Ireland reaching out, and this was in-house lecture-style training, letting communities access information on genealogical records, the land records, census, Griffiths, the Folklore Commission. We looked at the archaeology and the built heritage of our region, the Ballyhoura region. We looked at Ballyhoura Country's unique beauty spots and our landscape so that people could begin to realise what we actually have to offer in our area. And of course, fitting into that was the Graveyards project. This was very practical. This was a way of building up our genealogy repository. And I have to say, in the Ballyhoura region, we were starting at a 0 base, so we had nowhere to go but up. In doing that, we secured funding through the Rural Development Programme at 100%. So we looked at a block of work with John Tierney of Octra. We had an information session, and I remember that night that I wasn't sure at the turnout that would come to this information session on the Graveyards project, and we didn't have enough seats in the house. Such was the interest. So we knew that we had a huge amount of interest. A lot of communities wanted to engage with this. How were we going to do it? So we took a cluster approach. There's 5 districts in the Ballyhoura region, and we looked at a training graveyard in each. So everybody that wanted to learn about the recording of our headstones and the recording of that data could attend. We had a goal in a month's of a time frame to get 6 graveyards surveyed, and we got 17 done in that month. So there was huge interest, and it was a real case of parish helping parish. People went from, I see John here, Carricklish up to Maru, crossing those boundaries, but wanting to learn more information in each other's graveyards about their genealogy. So the interest grew quite quickly, and we saw that there was an obvious need for additional supports. There was so much energy around it. How are we going to maintain this when, as you all know, budgets are limited? But Octra came in with us, and they saw Ballyhoura as a pilot model that we could continue to populate the Historic Graveyards website with a lot of data along with our professional supervision, and as long as we had professional supervision. So this is where Colum Hardy comes in. I'm going to hand over to Colum now.
Morning. So as Amanda has explained, she's gone through the background to how we got up and running in the first place. I come in as regards fieldwork, as it came towards the fieldwork. And as you can see there, once we got out in the ground, we've done over 100 graveyards to date. It's probably more than that actually now. And then some of the towns and the areas that we've done Bruff and Ardpatrick, Herbertstown, Kildare. And in each of these areas there's a close-knit community group who are willing to come out anytime we schedule a graveyard in all weathers as well. This led to nearly 300 volunteers that we have now on the database, which is such a valuable database that we are able to contact any of these people now for future heritage projects that may come up, tour guide training, digital heritage recording. So that's a valuable database that we've created over the last 2-3 years in regards to the graveyard project. The project itself has also helped to create a number of employment opportunities on the TUS and the Rural Social Scheme project as well. So we've engaged a number of people in transcribing the data that's going up and recording the graveyards as well. So that's been a benefit as well. And the outcome of it as well is that as a result of this now, there's now a huge genealogical repository of information for the region, and it's been accessed by numerous people all around the world on the OCTRA website, the historicgraves.com website. It's a free searchable website. So Amanda, myself, and a number we've had emails from across the world: New Zealand, Australia, England, Europe, looking for connections. They found their relatives, their great grandparents on the website, and looking for more information. And then in turn, we're able to put them onto the 278 via the database that we have. We're able to redirect them to the community groups that have that information and record it. Okay, so that's sort of the background. This is the Historic Graves website that you've probably all seen and are aware of anyway. Again, developed by OCTRA and John Tierney, and with the help of Maurizio Toscano, the IT specialist in the background, who's always there whenever we need him. So it's a very easy searchable website. You can see there's a number of headings at the top. You can search by the graveyard name if you knew it. You can search by family surname, by county. There's a Google map there. If you just only knew the region, you could just zoom in until you find the actual graveyard that you're looking for. So it's a very easy, very user-friendly website. This is just a screen grab of some of the graveyards that we've done in Ballyhoura at the moment. There's probably a couple more to be added just over the last month or two. But you can see we're stretching from Castlecommon in the north down to Doneraile in the south. Croom over towards Kilmallock is there. There's a number of graveyards there in and around Carricklish because they have a strong base of a community group there. John is there, he knows, and a few others. So there's a couple of areas of sort of void areas there that we're hoping to tap into and animate the community groups that are there and get them on board and increase our numbers there as well. But you can see such a broad, vast area that we've covered in the last 2 or 3 years. Just to run through quickly some of the fieldwork techniques that we're using when we go out there. Torchlight is one of the main ones that we use. You can see a good LED torch that we use. If we shine it obliquely across the headstone, it'll 9 times out of 10 will bring out the inscription. So that's just one of the techniques we use. The other one is sunlight. If we bounce the sunlight off a small mirror, again, obliquely across the headstone, again, it's just like a torchlight, it'll bring it out. Especially early morning is a good time to read the headstones. The sun is just coming up in the early morning. Once the sun gets too high and goes behind the headstone, it's quite difficult. So we tend to use the mirror in that circumstances. We bounce the sunlight back off the mirror and onto the headstone. Okay, so they're very non-intrusive methods to read the headstones, and we don't advocate wire brushes or grass or chalk or flour or all that is being used. Like with those 2 simple techniques, 9 times out of 10 we will get the inscription read. School participation, we regularly have the schools down. Information, we bring them around the graveyards, we show them the techniques, we'll do gravestone rubbings with them to show them what's involved. It's education, it's informing them about the conservation of their local graveyards as well. We also have quite a lot of times TY students come down during their period on the transition year, and they'll come down and help record their local historic graveyard as well, and they'll transcribe it as well during the year. They'll put up the information themselves as well. So we encourage that as well about school participation. This is a name cloud. This is once the raw data is collected and put up on the system, you're able to download it. And once you download all the surnames, you're able to more or less just pop it into a software program on the system, and it'll spit out a map like this, which is more or less the size of the name is the frequency of how many times it appears in the graveyard. So you can see here now, this is one, you see Hogan is obviously the most common name in the graveyard, Cahalan, Kennedy, Mara, Heenan, Nolan. So it's like it's almost like a cloud that you can hang over the graveyard. Personality, it gives it identity. It connects it back to the community as well. So that's just something that we do as well, and we give that back to the community group at the very end as well. So it's a nice visual representation of the names of the graveyard. As I said, we do headstone rubbings as well, which is just a simple piece of flip chart paper that you have at any conference or any talk, some black carbon paper that you get in any art store, and just wrapped around a soft sponge that you get, and just a nice soft circular motion brings out the rubbings. It's very good for bringing out the iconography at the top, bringing out the images. Okay, so we train the locals in on that as well. These are just some examples here. You have the skull at the top, you have shamrocks down here, you have symbols of the Passion up on the top left, you have insignia over there, you have Christ on the cross over there, so INRI. So there's a vast amount of very artistic ones that come out, and then they go ahead and they can be brought to exhibitions and festivals, and they can be put up and displayed. These are just two from the Church of Ireland in Stradbally and Castleconnell, just in Limerick, that we did last year. So you can see these were on two large slate headstones, more than likely the same stonemason, given the similarity of the angels and the cherubs and the INRI and the cross within the circle. So side by side, two very nice rubbings that we did. Again, this is a symbol we got this one in Creekora. Symbols of the Passion here depicted. We have Christ on the cross. We have the 30 pieces of silver with the 3-0 on top. Over there on the right, we have the two robbers either side of Christ. And then you have the rest of the symbols here. You have the spears, the lance, the scourge here. You have the pillar on this side here. You can't really see it here, but there's 3 dice up here on the very top. And just up there, you have the sword, and underneath the sword is the ear, where the ear was cut off the soldier in the Garden of Gethsemane. Okay, so you have a hammer there, you have the pliers and the nails. So this is one that we did that has nearly all the symbols of the Passion that we found on it. Occasionally you get symbols of the Passion, but you only get maybe 1 or 2 symbols. This, as you can see, tells the story of the whole story of the crucifixion. Again, we encourage the communities when they're coming out recording to record the plaques that are within the church as well. We're not just concentrating on the graveyards. There's the plaques, there's memorials within the walls of the churches as well. There's the gates as well that may be there. This was the gates down in Glenrue. So we have Murphy from 158 Church Street in Dublin. So we encourage that as well, to record as much of the heritage in a connection with the graveyard as possible. Again, as I said earlier on, this leads on to the communities themselves, organising festivals, organising events, and this is one we had about this time last year in Ballyhoura, where we put together, at that stage we had done maybe 60 or 70 graveyards, so we brought it all together in one exhibition, and as you can see there, we have the photographs, we have the rubbings, we have the name clouds, we have the stories connected to each of the graveyards, and there was a fantastic turnout. I think we had over 100 people that came to it. So it's bringing back, doing the information, doing the recording, and giving it back to the community so that they see what has happened. And again, nothing happens without the volunteers of the community taking part. Myself and Will O'Shea, who was the other community archaeologist, and Doreen, who was the transcriber, and others, John and Sarah, I see there, and John as well. Nothing happens without volunteer or the community input. We're just there to guide them, to explain to them the methods, to put the structures in place for them to record the graveyard. But without the individuals who are there behind us recording the graveyards, it won't get done. So you can see we've volunteered the Carcalish, where is that? That's Ullin, Limerick, Castleconnell down here, and the Creekora. So without these, the people taking part wouldn't get recorded. Again, we have the schools coming out there in Temple Rowan, Drumkeen, Kilbeheny, and Montpellier. So again, it's community-based, community-structured. Just to finish off now, just as you go from graveyard to graveyard, there's numerous stories that are gathered. I've just picked 1 or 2 just to indicate that without the recording of the graveyards, within a generation, these stories could be lost. So this is just one from Ulan, County Limerick. Edward Landers, he was one of 16 citizens in Vietnam. He died in the last couple of years of Vietnam, and then he was brought back and buried with full military honours in Ula, and where he was given the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. So just to finish up then, the successes and outcomes, it's a community-based structure programme. We collect the stories and the folklore and the audio files. There's a greater sense of achievement is added if the projects are done by the local communities. As I said, nothing happens without their involvement. It's helping community employment schemes by doing that. What's next? Recording, parish records, school roll books, places of work, census, digital heritage recording, and as I said there, festivals, exhibitions, genealogy, links, tourism, that all leads to that as well. So that's the success and outcomes. So on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. And
here, take a glass of water.